My name is Jarrett. I am 27 years old. My life could be perfect if it weren't for one, but I am married to Emmeline, a woman with angelic looks and a steady personality. She is 25 years old. She is tall, slender, with long golden hair and piercing green eyes. Her smile always made me forget about all the problems. We were together for 3 years. It seemed that our love was indestructible. It all started with a family picnic hosted by her parents. It was a sunny morning, and we went to her family's country house. Emmeline looked gorgeous in her white summer dress. She was making a salad on the porch when I saw Clinton Chase. Clinton was a college friend of mine, tall and muscular with thick brown hair and blue eyes. He's always been popular with girls, but I've never suspected him of anything like that, and I wasn't jealous of Emmeline. Jarrett, hi. He smiled as he came up to me. How are you? Hi, Clint, it's okay, I replied, trying not to betray my suspicions. It's been a long time. We exchanged a couple of routine phrases, and I began to notice how he was looking at Emmeline. There was something in his eyes that made me uneasy. Later, when we were sitting at the table, I couldn't help but notice how they looked at each other. Their glances were too frequent and too long. Amy, can you pass me the salt? Clinton asked, smiling at her. She was slightly embarrassed, but smiled back. Of course, she replied, handing him the salt shaker. I felt like everything was boiling inside of me. After lunch, I approached Emmeline when she was alone on the veranda. Amy, it seemed to me that you and Clinton were acting strangely. I began cautiously. She looked at me with her green eyes full of surprise. What do you mean, Jarrett? What is it? She asked, raising an eyebrow slightly. You often exchange glances. Are you hiding something? I tried to speak calmly, but my voice still betrayed the tension. Emmeline took a deep breath and looked away. You're exaggerating, Jarrett. We were just talking, she said, avoiding my gaze. But I knew it was for a reason. Something changed that day. Doubts began to creep into my mind. I knew I couldn't ignore it. After that family picnic, I couldn't shake my suspicions. Emmeline continued to behave as usual, but something in her behavior seemed insincere to me. I started paying attention to the little things. Her frequent delays at work, unexpected calls and text messages. It was driving me crazy. One day, when I returned home earlier than usual, I found Emmeline talking on the phone. Her voice was soft and gentle. She didn't hear me come in. Yes, I miss you too, she said, smiling a little. I took a step forward, and she whirled around. His face turned pale, and his eyes widened in surprise. Jarrett, you're early, she said, quickly putting her phone in her pocket. Who are you talking to? I asked, trying to stay calm. It was just a friend, she replied, avoiding my gaze. I didn't bother her with questions, but I decided that I needed to find out the truth. Later, when she fell asleep, I took her phone and checked her messages. My heart started pounding harder when I saw the correspondence with Clinton. They discussed their meetings and shared their plans for the future. The next day, I decided to meet with Clinton in person. We agreed to meet at a small cafe near my office. He arrived on time, confident as always. Jarrett, it's good to see you, he said, sitting down across from me. Clint, I replied, trying to hide my tension. We need to talk. He squinted, as if trying to read my mind. About what? He asked, taking a sip of coffee. About you and Emmeline, I said bluntly. He put down his cup and leaned forward slightly. What do you want to know? His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed concern. Are you cheating on me? I asked, trying to meet his gaze. Clinton was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. Yes, he said softly. We've been dating for several months now. Those words hit me like lightning. I tried to hold back my emotions, but my hands were trembling treacherously. Why? I gasped, feeling tears coming to my eyes. We didn't mean to offend you, Jarrett, he began. But Emmeline, she feels unhappy with you. I couldn't listen to him anymore. He got up and left the cafe without saying a word. Returning home, I tried to figure out what to do next. My heart was bursting with pain and resentment. When I returned, Emmeline was waiting for me on the doorstep. Jarrett, we need to talk, she said softly. Yes, we really need to talk, I replied, looking her straight in the eye. Emmeline and I were sitting on the couch in the living room. The room was in semi-darkness. Only the faint light of a desk lamp dispelled the shadows. I could feel the tension building with every second of silence. Jarrett, I have to tell you something. Emmeline began without looking up. I already know, I replied. You're dating Clinton, she started and looked at me. There were tears in her eyes. I didn't want it to happen like this. Her voice trembled. But I felt so lonely. Lonely? I asked, not believing my ears. We live together. I'm always there. How could you feel lonely? Emmeline looked away and clasped her hands. You've changed, Jarrett. You've been different since that accident. You became withdrawn, and I didn't know how to reach you. I sighed, trying to make sense of her words. And that's why you went to Clinton. I asked, did you think cheating would help us? She shook her head. No, I was just looking for comfort. He was there when I needed him. And you met secretly, behind my back, I continued. How often did this happen? Emmeline froze for a moment, then answered quietly. Almost every time I said that I was going to a friend's or staying late at work. The words cut me like knives. Every time I believed her, she lied to me. What about the night you stayed up late? I asked, remembering one of these cases. She nodded again. Yes, I was with him. Tears flowed down her cheeks, but I didn't feel sorry for her. At that moment, I felt only pain and disappointment. Jarrett, I'm sorry, she said, coming closer. I know I betrayed your trust. I know I don't deserve to be forgiven. Turned away, unable to look at her anymore. I need time to think about it, I said, trying to stay calm. I do not know if I can forgive this. Emmeline nodded, her face full of despair. I understand, she whispered. I'll wait as long as it takes. I couldn't sleep for a long time that night. Memories of our happy moments surfaced in my head, mixing with the bitter reality of her betrayal. I knew that we had a long and difficult road ahead of us, and I wasn't sure if I could go through with it. As the days passed, our communication with Emmeline became even more strained. I still couldn't believe that she had betrayed me. We decided that we needed to try family therapy. Maybe a specialist will help us sort out our feelings and find a way to reconciliation. The first lesson was scheduled for Wednesday evening. We arrived at the therapist's office, a small, cozy room with upholstered chairs and calm music in the background. Our therapist, Dr. Mark Livingston, was a mature man with gray hair and kind eyes. Good evening, Jarrett and Emmeline, he greeted us. Let's start by having each of you share your feelings and expectations from these meetings. I looked at Emmeline. She looked nervous, but nodded. I'll start, I said. I feel betrayed and cheated. We were together for 3 years, and I always believed that everything was fine with us. But now I'm not sure if we can restore trust. Emmeline sighed and clasped her hands in her lap. I know I made a big mistake, she said softly. I know I hurt Jarrett, but I really want to try to fix it. I love him and I don't want to lose him. Dr. Livingston nodded and wrote something down in his notebook. All right, he said. The first thing we need to do is understand what led to this situation. Emmeline, please tell us about your feelings and what prompted you to cheat. She sighed and began to speak. Jarrett changed after the accident. He became more withdrawn, retreating into himself. I felt like I was losing him. At that time, Clinton was there for me and supported me. I was looking for comfort, and it so happened that our relationship crossed the boundaries of friendship. Jarrett, how do you feel after hearing this? Dr. Livingston asked me. It hurts to hear that, I admitted. I know that I became different after that tragedy, but I didn't think it would lead to treason. I feel like we should have talked about this earlier. Dr. Livingston nodded. Communication is the key, but right now we need to focus on the present. Jarrett, are you ready to give Emmeline a chance and try to repair your relationship? I paused, considering his words. Then he nodded slowly. Yes, I'm ready to try, but it won't be easy. Nobody says it's going to be easy, Dr. Livingston said. But if you're both willing to work on it, you have a chance. We continued our sessions with Dr. Livingston, trying to sort out our feelings and learn how to communicate with each other. It wasn't easy, but we tried. I still felt hurt, but I was also starting to see that Emmeline sincerely wanted to fix everything. Despite our efforts, something remained unresolved. Every day was a struggle to restore trust. Emmeline and I continued to visit Dr. Livingston, but the tension in our house did not subside. One evening, when we were sitting in the kitchen after dinner, I decided that we needed to have a serious conversation. Amy, I began, looking at her tired face, it seems to me that we are marking time. She looked up, her eyes reflecting the pain. I know, Jarrett, she whispered. I feel it too. I'm not sure I can forgive you completely, I continued. Every time I look at you, I'm reminded of betrayal. Emmeline sighed and rubbed her temples. I understand. I feel guilty every day, but I do not know what to do next. I sighed and looked out the window, trying to collect my thoughts. Maybe we need time apart, I suggested, to understand what we really want. She froze, then nodded slowly. Maybe you're right, she said softly. We both need time to think about it. That night, I slept in the living room. In the morning, I packed my things and went to a friend who offered me a temporary stay with him. Saying goodbye was painful, but I knew we both needed space. It's been a few weeks, and Emmeline and I haven't talked much. I spent my time thinking about our marriage and what happened. Sometimes I found myself thinking that I missed her smile and warmth. But the memory of her betrayal haunted me. One day I decided to go home to talk to her and find out what would happen next. I went into our house and found her sitting on the couch, flipping through a photo album. Amy, we need to talk, I began. She lifted her head and closed the album. Yes, Jarrett, she said. I've been thinking about it too. We sat down next to each other, and I felt her hand tremble slightly. I realized that I couldn't forget what happened, I said. I tried, but every time I think about it, I feel pain. Emmeline nodded, her eyes filling with tears. I can't live with that guilt either, she admitted. I don't want us both to suffer. I think we need to break up, I said quietly, so that each of us can find our happiness. She started crying, and I hugged her, feeling her tears running down my shirt. I will always love you, Jarrett, she whispered. But I agree. We need to move on. We parted peacefully. Emmeline moved in with her friend, and I stayed in our house to complete this stage of my life. It was a difficult decision, but I knew it was the right one. Time passed, and the wounds began to heal. I focused on my work and friends, finding solace in their support. Emmeline also found her place, and we sometimes corresponded, keeping each other at a distance. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I was ready for a new beginning. Life went on, and I believed that I could find my happiness. That's how the story ended. Leave your opinion in the comments about this story. We will be interested to know what you think. Also, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. That way you won't miss new exciting stories. Good luck to you.